Hello, welcome to Inspiring Women with ADHD. I am Renee Allen, the host of this podcast, and I'm excited to be here even a little more than usual because I've been wanting to be able to make 2 episodes a week the past 3 weeks, and I haven't been able to get myself to do it for a lot of reasons. I needed to focus on some other things, but I really wanted to get back at having an episode either come out on Monday or Tuesday. In order to do that, I usually need to do it a little earlier, planning ahead, all that, and I'm doing it. It's Sunday evening, I'm doing it, and this will be available for you on Monday, and I'll have another one for you most likely on Thursday. That's my plan. So today I want to talk to you about what to do once you know that you have ADHD. Last episode, it could have been 5 minutes ago, depending on how long ago you finished listening to it. But I talked about all that goes into or can go into getting an ADHD diagnosis. And whether you actually get a diagnosis or you've read enough that you know you have it. What do you do next? Maybe nothing. Maybe you just go on your merry way and that's your life. And now you think, oh, this makes sense. But more than likely, because we tend to be very curious, extra curious, when we have ADHD brains, we learn more and more about ADHD. And that may cause us to make some changes in our lives or just do things a little different. Maybe that is making changes in your life, but accepting that you do things a little more differently. So when I first got my diagnosis, I thought, okay, so what was the reason in coming to the doctor? What is he going to say to me if he does say that I have ADHD? And the first thing he said is, would you like to try medication? And I thought, I don't know. I wasn't really coming here because I wanted to try medication, but I'm open to it. Why would I need to? What are the benefits? What are the reasons that it could be helpful? And he didn't really promise any benefits because they're so different for different people, the way that medication helps people or doesn't, or has side effects or no side effects. But what he told me is when you have ADHD, there are some things that could make it risky. There could be risk factors to your health or to others if your brain isn't working properly. And I thought about it and I thought that's true. And even just being super distracted driving, or I don't know, we talk about distracted driving with cell phones, but even before cell phones. Many of us are old enough to remember driving around before there was a car phone or anything like that. And we had distractions then too, for sure. I remember one of my college roommates said she was pulled over. She wasn't doing anything bad, I don't think. Maybe a blinker was out or something like that. But she was pulled over and she was drinking out of a Big Gulp cup from 7-Eleven. And she said that the police officer who pulled her over said, be careful with that. That wasn't the reason that he pulled her over, but he said, be careful with that because that can block your visibility when you go up to drink with such a large cup. And I thought about that afterwards. There are a lot of ways that we can be distracted or that could cause problems for sure. But there are different things that I've thought about in my life that are problems when even just turning on water in the sink or in the bathtub and leaving the room and forgetting about it, whether it overflows or runs too long or who knows what. All of those things are risky if you forget. And I've done that so many times. I can't even count how many times, not just with water or cooking. And thankfully, the microwave turns itself off. And same with the toaster, you put something in there and it pops up, but other things don't. And so it can be pretty dangerous. If you have ADHD, you get distracted so easily and you do things that need to have attention or a working memory. So whether you're using medication or choosing other options that can be helpful, that's something to explore once you understand, oh, I'm not just scattered. I have a reason that my brain does this. And because of that, now that I understand it a little better, what can I do that might prevent that from happening again? Or I might write myself Post-it notes, set alarms, do different things. And what are some other things that might be helpful to do once you find out you have ADHD, or maybe you've had it for a year and you really haven't given it much thought. One thing that helps me is to realize, okay, this is why I'm not consistent. This is why I need a lot of extra help. And that doesn't mean we're not capable. You may be the most capable person, and you may have been capable for a really long time in college, young adulthood, raising children. There may be a stage where that changes a bit. Sometimes things just get harder, or our bodies change, or we just take on more, and that maxes out our brains to a certain extent that things aren't as easy as they used to be. And that's okay. And knowing that you may not be consistent forever. Most people aren't, but you may, I don't want to say you may fail, but if you start a new routine, don't feel bad if that doesn't become your forever routine. A new exercise routine, a new morning routine, what you're going to eat for breakfast every day, what you're going to do before you go to bed, brushing your teeth and flossing, all those things, washing your face, all those things that oh my gosh, they seem overwhelming. But the routine you might find for a while, this is important, and you do it well for maybe a week or two, and then you don't. And that's okay. You may want to think of a new way to do it, or you may go back to the old way, or you may not do it for a while. But all the little routines or all the little methods that you come up with, that's part of the gift of your brain too, is that you love to think of ideas and solutions. And sometimes a new one is just nice to do. Whether it's because you haven't continued with the old one or not, just know that it's okay to change your mind, that it's not a sign of somebody that doesn't do things well. It's just somebody who does things differently from time to time. And especially if you're driven by impulses or just the excitement of doing something different, that's okay too. I think of how fun it is to rearrange furniture and just see it differently. When I first started working in an office full time, I'd set up the desk, I'd set up the computer, the old IBMs or, WordPerfect, and we didn't even have Windows or internet then. But did we have internet? No, because we didn't email. We just sent inter-office memos. I guess so. I'm trying to think. But I remember thinking, this is the greatest setup. Yeah, I've reorganized these files. I put new stickers on the files. I'd come up with this new setup, and it just felt so nice and clean. And it wasn't like I wasn't maintaining the cleanliness, because in an office, you have more time, fewer distractions. I think it's easier to keep up with things in an office than it is at home. But every once in a while, I think, I don't like turning this way to get the phone. I'm going to move this over here and that over there. And I'd come up with a new system. And I never saw that as a negative. I saw that as a positive, as an improvement. And you may do that. You may go back to an eating routine, an exercise routine that you did before, and you might change a few things, or you might do it exactly the same. And that's okay too. And it doesn't mean that one was better than the other and that you should have kept going with it in between. It just means that you're doing what is right for the time. And as a yoga teacher, that's one of the things that I've learned is each day, even morning till compared to nighttime, each time your body's different. For sure, your brain is different. And so you may need a different approach at a different time. And so starting a routine, giving yourself permission that if it doesn't go forever, that's okay. And that doesn't mean that you're going to say, well, I know I'm not going to be able to do this for very long. I don't know, maybe you do. But just knowing that it's not a failure if you don't do it forever. And having a friend to do it with, for sure, someone to check in with, for sure, is helpful and more fun. But building a routine and having some system is really, really helpful in life. But if it needs to change, that's okay. Another thing is just to look for as many shortcuts as you can to make your life simpler. And this is something that I've talked about in previous episodes, paving a pathway to make it easier for your brain. And that may be getting rid of clutter in your house. That may be letting go of some responsibilities, simplifying your schedule, any of those things that make it easier It also may be asking for help or deciding it's okay to have part of your house be really messy for 2 weeks or longer. So, it's just what you want to live with or feel like is okay to live with. And sometimes the messy areas of your house don't bother you because you can't function. They bother you because you just feel humiliated. You feel a sense of shame every time you see it. I'm a blend. There is a part of me that thinks I should be able to take care of that. But there also is a part of me at times where I can't function. I think that's where laundry can be nice because if you're okay with the mess of your laundry piling up, whether it's the dirty clothes or the clean ones that you haven't hung up or put away, if you're okay seeing that, and yet you're still able to find underwear in the morning, socks, whatever it is you need, I like that because I'm still able to function even though it's not ideal. And sometimes doing things I mentioned before when I was in college, and I had, in no way did I know I had ADHD in college. I was very high functioning in so many ways, but I I had the overwhelm with laundry, which I'm not sure why I like doing laundry, but I had the overwhelm with laundry. And so I just kept buying underwear. I just kept buying underwear. I got to where I had over 30 pair and I could go a whole month without doing laundry. And I think that was just because we lived in apartments that didn't have washers and dryers. So you had to, take the laundry bag and walk through the apartment complex to whatever the clubhouse or whatever they call it, where you go in and you have to put your quarters in and stuff. It just wasn't as fun. So I came up with some life shortcuts for myself, and that made it so I didn't have to do what the world tells me to do. And that's another thing is realizing that even though the world thinks, oh, you do laundry this often or you change your sheets this often, there's no one, there's no sheets police at the door really checking to see if you've changed the sheets or washed them, whatever it is. Some people say every week. I don't do it every week. Maybe sometimes I do, but I really don't do it on a schedule. I just do it when I think about it or feel like doing it. But yeah, other things, asking for help, whether it's from somebody in your home or paying somebody to help you, or even somebody who says, if you ever need help with this, and you're like, oh, I don't want to impose on them. But actually saying, actually, if you could, give my daughter a ride home from softball every week, that would be fabulous. Things like that can make your life so much easier. I've been going through kind of an evaluation phase of the things that I've always done as a mom. And now my kids are all older, but 2 of them are living here still, and a lot of them still come to visit. And so I've always had certain things that I was the primary person that took care of in the home. And even though we had systems in place where one of my children did the dishes every night or another one did this every day, I still feel like if it's not done, it's not just my responsibility, but it's seen as something that I should still be doing. And I'm really weighing it out now and thinking, not only do I not need to tell everyone, hey, I'm not doing this anymore all the time, I could just stop doing it. I could just stop doing it. So I have done that quite a bit this past year and have tried to not be disturbed by it myself because I have a hard time seeing a sink that's not clean. And it doesn't get in the way of cooking when I'm not cooking. If I'm just snacking all day long, then that doesn't bother me as much either. But I'm trying to separate because there's so many things I want to do for my website, for my podcast, creating content. I'm going in new directions with my time. So I'm trying to figure out what gets either let go and lived with, or if I get to a point where I can pay someone to do that, then I would do that too. And I actually started doing that last year. I had somebody come and help and clean the bathrooms, which was fabulous. I don't know if you have a house cleaner, but she was really, really great. But now she can only come if she can do more hours at a time. And I understand it. And she understands me. I don't have the money and she doesn't have the ability to do that. So we're at it'd be great, maybe later, kind of thing. But hiring out, sourcing out, I guess is what it's called. I was going to say resourcing out, but outsourcing. I just came around the circle of figuring out what that was, but outsourcing things that you've done before or that you have a hard time doing. I'm still kind of figuring that out because there's some things that I do all the time. And I think, do I want to keep doing those? Do I want to outsource them? Do I want to decide they don't need to be done? Or do I want to ask somebody else to do it? So that's something that you may need to weigh out no matter what part of your life you're in. You may be a student, you might be in school, you have a dorm room or an apartment, and you're not having to figure out who's doing the dishes, you're going to the cafeteria. But you may pay somebody else to type up your papers. Do people even type up papers anymore? I was an English major and I never had a computer my whole time in college. That's how old I am. I graduated in 1986. But that last year, I learned that there was a place on campus where you could go and it was kind of like a Kinko's copy place. And those who are a little younger, FedEx did that for a while. They probably still do, where you could have them print out your paper. I think now, what do? You probably email something to them if you don't have a printer, but you're still typing it up, huh? Are there ways to dictate it? I don't know. I'm glad I don't have to actually know. But I had to use the typewriter, and it took so much time to make edits, especially if a teacher had corrections to make and with footnotes and you used whiteout, but then that didn't even work if you had more pages and you had to cut. The idea of cutting and copying and pasting was revolutionary. It was. And then I could take a paper that I typed on a typewriter, write anything I wanted on there, move this and draw arrows and take it into that place and that copy center, and they would type it up in their computer. That was so magical. And they would print it out and have it all ready for me. That was so great. But that was, I guess, my early days of, I'd rather spend this money and outsource. Even deciding to fly instead of drive. I used to drive 14 hours to go home from college. And it was not the most fun thing. I actually didn't even have a car. I rode with somebody or shared driving and helped pay for gas and stuff. But when I started saving my money and flying, that was the best thing ever. That was outsourcing my travel time. So think outside the box. What kind of things are costing you frustration? Another thing you might want to look into, and maybe you already have, is seeking therapy or having a life coach. I'm not a life coach. I do coaching per se, but I'm not a life coach. Does that make sense? I do one-on-one coaching with some people and private sessions. But more than anything than doing that, I want to continue making courses and having challenges and things. I love working with groups of people and bringing people together. And it's interesting because as a yoga teacher, a lot of teachers go for the private yoga sessions over the classes because you make a lot more money with one-on-one than you do teaching a class. And a private session, you don't have to rent space. You can do it at your place. You could do it at their place, where if you teach in a group setting, you're either at a gym and they don't pay you very much, or a yoga studio, or you're doing it outdoors or at a beach. And I've done all of that. But I love being with groups of people. I love community. I love gathering people together. Whether you have very little in common or just one thing in common, that's what's great about yoga, because people are so different ages, different beliefs, mindsets, experiences, and we come together and feel a closeness. So that's what I want to do eventually on my website, is offer courses where we can come together, learn together. I'll do some group coaching, but not one-on-one, I don't think. I'm doing a little bit of one-on-one on the side, but once I start the group. But anyway, back to that, seeking some kind of either group therapy, group coaching, or one-on-one, just to figure out maybe how your symptoms are affecting your relationships, or your feeling about how things are going at home or not going at home. And you could even do therapy with somebody in your family or a friend. Maybe you found that ADHD is getting in the way of the relationship, and maybe going to someone who's trained to help you with that could be helpful, because now you know what you're dealing with, right? So that's something you could do. And other kinds of treatment, whether it's nutritional, natural, there's so many different kinds of treatment. You may feel like, I need a massage once a week. You might decide, I'm dealing with a lot here. That's going to be my therapy. And, I don't want to get somebody who does massage or therapy saying that's not therapy, but it could be body therapy, right? If I could, I would get a massage once a week. I would probably get one every day, actually. I think that could cure everything. But also, speaking of massage therapy, but finding ways to cope with stress and physical ways that help with that. One, exercise. We know it's such a great stress reliever, and it does a lot for the chemical composition in your brain, and it will boost things that are low and take down things like the cortisol and the stress hormones. It'll help you feel better and do better in your day. And if you have ever had a consistent exercise routine, you probably already know that. If you already do, that's probably one of the reasons you're doing it. Also, relaxation techniques. I teach yoga. That's one. Meditation. I don't really teach yoga, just meditation classes, but I know a lot of the meditation techniques. I use them, kind of sprinkle them in, I guess, in my classes, and they really do have mental health benefits, especially when they're done regularly. So even if you like to go on a walk or go on a run or go on a hike, just doing that alone, even just with the sounds of nature versus music, although I do love listening to music and stuff, but that can be very, very helpful for your brain. And your meditation with that could be a meditation in motion, the breathing with the pace of your breath. And also, when you're finished, you could just lie down and you think, oh, I need to stretch. You could stretch. Stretching is really good for you. I also teach stretching classes. So I've learned the benefits of that. But even just lying down and listening to your heartbeat, you might think, am I doing anything? Yeah, you're actually doing a meditation that you don't know is a meditation. You're just observing your body and letting it relax. That is magical. It's really magical and super helpful for your brain, for your body, for yourself. But anything that brings you joy, leaves you feeling more relaxed, maybe you like floating on water, on a, what do you call it? The inner tube. People don't use inner tubes anymore. They use the floaty things, but I can't remember what they're called. And that's what I like. I like to just float because I used to go to a lake a lot and either be on an inner tube. My dad was a truck driver, so we had real black, gigantic inner tubes. And people who had money had the ones that you blow up that were more like a mattress. But that is relaxing to me. It's funny because I teach yoga, and that's one of the things I'll say at the end, like just let go of weight, in Shavasana at the end, you're just, each time you exhale, let go of a little more weight, almost like you're floating on water. And for me, even if I'm just on my back floating on water, that's relaxing to me. And one of my friends told me, yeah, one time I was in a class and the woman said, and just feel like you're floating on water. And she said, my swimming teacher had me lay on my back to float once, and I fell and got water in my face. It was really stressful. So I was completely stressed out when she said that. So that may not leave you feeling joyous and more relaxed, but if whatever helps you, that's something that you could do. Another thing is just being with friends, being with people, friends, loved ones, family members, spending time with them, whether you're just sitting and cuddling, or I was just thinking of my grandson because I was cuddling with him this morning, or even pets. Do you know that? You probably do. I keep saying this. Do you know it? It was news to me when I learned it, but I don't want to assume that you don't know it. So it's that empathetic part of me of, not wanting to think something that's not accurate about you. But pets, just holding a pet is calming for the body. It's something else that can get you in that parasympathetic nervous system mode. So, yeah, before my daughter had dogs, she used to rent puppies because it helped with her anxiety. And now she has 3 of her dogs, and they're downstairs. I've been watching them for almost a week. Oh, and we had a hurricane. So I'm in Florida. We had that Hurricane Helene. Is that what it's called? Yeah, it was a doozy. And we're just about 40 miles inland from where it hit, maybe a little further south. But we're far enough in that we didn't get any water, any of the surge water. And we have so many trees around our house. We're in a little forest that they kind of helped each other stay up. But a lot of people had giant trees fall over, including my daughter and my son. And people already helped and cleaned up my son's and his neighbors. And people are really fabulous. As far as I know here anyway, no one's been hurt, but I'm sure there have been people hurt here and all over. It's not what this podcast is about, but I just thought I'd do that little side note. I am fine. Any of you who knew I was in Florida for this hurricane, I mentioned it last week, I am fine. And we have internet. We didn't have power. We didn't have water for 24 hours. And it made me feel like I was a wimp because it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. I like to keep busy. But yeah, give yourself a break with your ADHD. I know that you love to be productive. You love to find solutions. And if those solutions are things that maybe seem like, oh, that doesn't mean I'm doing as well, that's okay. If you need to have paper plates and you don't want to clean the dishes, maybe you have paper plates most days and maybe more than often than not. I do it when my grandchildren come over. I think that is okay. And isn't it crazy that we have to give ourselves those messages all the time of it's okay if I do this? Because I think we tend to be hard on ourselves. And that's where support is really important. That's one of the reasons I decided to call this podcast Inspiring Women with ADHD, because I feel like we can support each other and inspire each other just by sharing our experiences, encouraging each other. And it's kind of tricky in real life, in civilian life with non-ADHD people, because you may want to post-diagnosis or post-aha, even if you didn't formally get diagnosed, but you understand it. You may want that just to be something that you tell people, well, I have ADHD, so blah, 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 blah. And I hear people say that. I know a lot of people who say, yeah, I have ADHD, so I have a hard time with this. And I really weigh it. I think, how much do I want to share that? I mean, obviously I'm sharing it with a lot of people now, but a lot of people know. But I mean, just in day-to-day conversations, I'm just weighing out how often that needs to be a topic. Does that make sense? That I can talk about myself or talk about them and that we can interact without needing to say, oh, this is crazy because I have ADHD. And I just think it's easier to do when you are with other people who do. You're relating to people who do. And honestly, I think, my husband probably is bored by it. He doesn't say anything, but you know what I mean? I kind of feel like unless somebody can relate to it, it's kind of on a need to know basis. I don't know. So yeah, that's where support of people who are going through something that is similar is really, really beneficial. A few years ago, one of my friends was looking for a therapist, and it was a time that it was kind of the post-COVID, or things were just opening back up, but it was really hard to find a therapist, and a lot of them were doing it on Zoom, and in person would have been more optimal, and there were wait lists and so forth. And my friend found a group therapy place that was accepting people. And they had an anxiety group, they had one for depression, they had different groups that met. And that way they could help more people. And once a week, you could see the therapist a little bit one-on-one, but mostly you met as a group. And I thought that was so amazing. In fact, my daughter's college offered the same thing. She went to a walk-in therapy place on campus, and they said, we're really limited on how much one-on-one work that we do with our students. But when we work with you, we see, can we help you manage? And then can we find a therapy group for you? And she loved it because in her apartment, she didn't know anybody else who had anxiety like she did. She couldn't relate to them. And if she talked about it, at some point it becomes kind of a drain, and, you feel like you're just talking about your health problems or something, even though it's mental health. But she really, really loved the group therapy and what she learned there. And so group support with ADHD, whether they have group therapy for women with ADHD or group coaching, I'm hoping to do that through my website. It'll be a little different than sitting around in a circle in person, although that would be fun too. Wouldn't it be really fun? Okay, so that's what we do with ADHD is we dream big. We dream big, and sometimes the best things happen from doing that, right? Sometimes they just stay dreams, and that's okay. But wouldn't it be fun to do retreats someday? Not only do we have online community, we find each other, we have our little online courses, and maybe we even talk on Zoom every once in a while or something like that. But then we actually have retreats. That would be so fun. I used to be a part of this website called Video Fitness. And I don't know, maybe somebody out here was on it. But when the internet became a thing and they started having forums before they had Facebook or social media, you could find some website that had a forum in what you were interested in. And my husband belonged to one for people who like to restore old cars. I even found they used to have Google groups or Yahoo groups. Do you remember that? Those were little email groups. And I don't know how you found them, but I found one on people who ate raw foods because I was spending a few years only eating raw foods, although only, like I said, with consistency. It wasn't always only, but it was mostly like on the Princess Bride, mostly dead. But anyway, yeah, mostly raw foods. But back to the dream. Yeah. So the Video Fitness Forum, we started planning out, hey, I'm going to be in San Francisco. How many of you are in San Francisco? Do you want to all get together? We do little group get-togethers if we were all in the same area. And it was really fun. Just a dinner, just out in public. One time I went to my very first one. There were about 15 of us there. We were talking so much because we had so much in common that the waitress kept coming back and back and back and back. And finally, one of the women who was in our group said, we need to all stop talking and just let the waitress take our order, because we just kept saying, oh, no, we're not ready yet, because none of us were looking at our menus. But anyway, I guess that's my dream big, is someday we may even be able to come together in groups, whether it's somewhere where I am or just a bunch of you are. That would be super fun. Super, super fun. I think that's it for today. I just hope you feel good about yourself once you know you have ADHD, and that it gives you more ideas, not more things that you need to get done, although that seems to go with the brain that we have, but more ideas of how to support yourself and how to strategize, how to navigate this life that you have. Because once it makes sense, then you know what you're working with. And hopefully you don't end up feeling frustrated with that. Hopefully you see it as empowering and a way to accept yourself more. And thank you for listening today, for being here. Gives me a lot to look forward to be able to talk to you. Even though we're not seeing each other, I feel like we are. So thank you for being here. And in just a few days, I'm going to have an assessment, an ADHD test for women on my website. I'm really excited about it. I've been working on it for a long time. And you know how ADHD can be, where you explore different things and then something doesn't work out and you explore something else. And I had this idea to have an ADHD test for women that's made by somebody with ADHD. And maybe it's not the only one that was made by a woman with ADHD, but there are so many tests that drive me crazy to take, or quizzes or surveys. And so I thought, if I make it in a way that's more user-friendly and insightful. And you should be able to see that on my website on October 1st on reneeallen.com. And you hit the little tab that says programs. I may even have a little bar at the top that says take my or your ADHD test for women at the top to make it easier to find. But it's always in the planning phase, isn't it? Until it actually happens. I never know for sure what I'm going to do until I actually do it. I don't know if that has to do with the memory component of ADHD, the impulsivity, or the decision-making. It might be a combination. But thank you for being patient with me as I navigate this. And as you navigate your ADHD, I am so grateful that you choose to listen to me and be here. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I should have another episode up on Thursday. Let me know if you ever have any requests. I do have my Inspiring Women with ADHD Instagram account. It really doesn't have a lot on there yet, just a few episode posts. I'm kind of playing with it, but I really just wanted to have a presence there. So if you want to DM me, that's an easy way to get in touch with me if you're on Instagram very often. But thank you so much for being here. Bye.
Open windows, broken shadows. Frozen dreams are left for tomorrow. Without a cause, no time for a pause. The silence of sound has yet been found, but not by me.